Hello and welcome to the Daily Grind here on Latte from Wednesday, the 16th of July. And I'm delighted to be back. I'm really sorry for not having the show yesterday. There's been a lot of noise, obviously, about Arsenal incomings. No announcements today, no bombers today, so a quiet one. So tonight, I'm going to be joined by James Benge of CBS Sports to look back at the window and ask, is it enough? James, welcome to the firm. How are you, my friend?
I'm very, very good. Thanks for having me back on. It's been too long.
It has been a long time, and I was racing back from Birmingham today to try and start a little earlier, hopefully just to get you in time for Love Island, so we can be done for that, mate. How have you been? You been well?
Yeah, I've been good. I've been. It's been a sort of strange summer for me. A lot of this sort of Club World Cup takes up more of my oxygen and more of my time than I might like because I don't find it at all interesting. But yeah, it feels a little bit like the calm before the storm of next summer as well. Our next season, I mean, it's going to be crazy. We have like a couple of weeks now until pre-season's fully. I mean, it's a couple of weeks until the season's up and running, and then it doesn't stop until this time next year. It's going to be brutal.
It is going to be brutal, and I'm slowly becoming sort of more energized. I'm looking forward as we creep closer to the start of our tour. James, obviously, we fly out this weekend to Singapore to start all the shenanigans that you would expect pre-season, and it's been a busy window, which we're going to talk about tonight. So thanks for joining me, James. Really appreciate it. James, of course, if anybody wants to follow, he's available on socials at James Benge of CBS Sports. Welcome to the show, everybody watching. Thank you so much for waiting so patiently. Drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and get involved in the chat. First thing I want to talk about tonight, James, is Ethan Nwaneri has secured a new contract and, more importantly, a new position. David Ornstein, our esteemed colleague and friend, said yesterday, Arsenal are in the final stages of talks over a new contract for Ethan Nwaneri. Major interest from the Premier League and abroad, but the 18-year-old always prioritised staying at his boyhood club, which is fantastic news for us to hear. I think the news has since broken today. I've been busy at work, but Sammy Mockbell and Fabrizio, 5-year deal, 4+1, whatever it might be, 3+2, 2+3. There you go, there's my arithmetic. But the thing that's really sort of excited me, or intrigued me rather, is talk of a new central role. So first of all, James, straight off the bat, how does this news go down? This is fantastic for Arsenal fans. How's it gone down for you? And what do you think David's kind of alluding to here?
Yeah, I mean, it's really encouraging news. Look, from my side, we all knew that there was interest, but kind of the impression I got, and it's really reflected in some of the other reporting as well, is that Ethan Nwaneri had always prioritised extending his time at Arsenal. So while it is natural that teams like Borussia Dortmund and Chelsea were said to be sniffing around, I think this was always coming. It was always in the post. This is a guy that's grown up with this deep attachment to Arsenal. So no real surprises. And the central role too, it's not a shock at all. I mean, I know we're going to come on to talk about Noni Madueke, but that wing depth is really being rounded out. And I think to an extent, Ethan's presence on the right wing last season was more a sort of function of team need than it was like, this is what Mikel Arteta really wants to do. I think there will always sort of be questions. And we may not really know exactly how much we can expect game time wise for him until the window closes. But the vision had always been they want Ethan Nwaneri around the box. They want Ethan Nwaneri to be a person that is in that final third, creating, taking shots. He shoots the ball so well. And last season was a really, as much as it wasn't ideal for Arsenal, it was a very effective way of getting Ethan more game time than would have been expected. So it's great news and really exciting to have Ethan Nwaneri and Miles Lewis-Skelly, two of the best Hale End products in at least 5 years, two of the best since the sort of Saka generation, tied down for the long term. 5 years as well is really, really good. We shouldn't go unremarked. That's him kind of committing for his development years.
Yeah, no, it's really important. As a fan, first and foremost, delighted to see it. You love a Hale End prospect coming in, breaking into the team. And obviously he had such a positive impact on the fan base, on the team last season with his cameo appearances. I do want to ask, and I don't know if you know, but perhaps your conversations with Charles Watt, I know you do a sort of weekly show with Charles and you're so connected to all the journalists that we know and love. What happened towards the back end of the season with Ethan Nwaneri's appearances? Because he played those games, had some really impressive sort of minutes off the bench, a nice little run of games, and then towards the tail end, didn't really get a look in. Was it physicality? Was it his body just wasn't ready? Was it fitness? Was it all of the above? Like, what do you think happened?
A little. I mean, I've sort of never had this sort of confirmed from within Arsenal, but a little bit of everything. I think there was a real understanding that Ethan had played a lot of games, and that was beginning to catch up with him by the end of the season. It was also true that there were so many high stakes games that Bukayo Saka needed to play at. I know we sort of forget it, but there was a moment where Arsenal needed to make sure they worked and got their job done to get Champions League football. So things of that nature really did factor in. There was also, it has to be said, people would say to you earlier in the season, they'd say, "Look, bear in mind, Ethan's going to the Euros, so his season will run another 6 weeks, or however long that competition was." And there was an expectation that he'd get loads of game time there. So every decision Arsenal made around Ethan, beyond the ones in that particular corridor where it was like, you need to cover for Bukayo Saka for a few months, I think they're all made with that sort of long-term vision for him.
Yeah, listen, I'm going to have full faith in the club and Arteta, and obviously Per's still around in the background as the academy manager. I'm sure he's got one eye on Ethan's development, and this is what it's going to be. And I mean, in terms of expectations next season, he's probably not going to be ever present in the first 11 in the Premier League, but certainly, cameo appearances again, maybe the domestic cups. I mean, there's been talk even, James, of signing him up and sending him on loan. Do you buy that maybe for a year? Would you think that'd be of benefit to him?
I certainly wouldn't. I don't think I'd rush to do it in September. I think there's always the option of assessing what's best for Ethan in January. And I think, I remember going back to the show we do with Charles in sort of September, October, we were like, oh, does Miles Lewis-Skelly need to go on loan? Kind of glad we called that one wrong. So you never know. And I think the one thing you're going to have to say is the standard of the Arsenal squad right now. There's going to be plenty of value for Ethan in training and playing in the EFL Cup and coming off the bench, 9-man bench. He will be on it quite regularly.
I can't wait to see it. Great news about Ethan. And just on the subject of loans, before we look into today's subject matter, which is obviously the squad build that we've had, Reiss Nelson has been linked with a move back to Fulham. 12 appearances last season for Fulham, a goal and an assist, plagued by injuries, unfortunately, throughout his career. What do you make of that link?
Yeah, he really likes the idea of Fulham. That's my understanding. Of course, he does. He had a great time. I think one thing it's worth reflecting on from Nelson's side is he'd much prefer a permanent solution. I think for several years now, my kind of speaking to sources around Nelson, my understanding of the situation has been he doesn't really want to sort of be bouncing around on these loans, even when he found a very happy hunting ground at Fulham. I think the hope was that would become a permanent deal. Arsenal will want a permanent deal as well, but Fulham will point to those injury issues and go, oh, we don't know. We're not sure. So it feels to me like, and Sammy will know this very well as well, but a compromise would probably be a loan. 2 years left on his deal as well. So you'd be looking to get an option or an obligation there, but it wouldn't surprise me if Fulham Fulham are well placed to dictate terms, because it's where Nelson would like to go.
Yeah, look, he's been around for such a long time, but you still forget he's only 25. Like I thought he was a lot older, but yeah, there we are. It just hasn't worked out for Arsenal. I personally, I think he's a talented boy. I think the ship has sailed, and if he goes on loan to Fulham, the best of luck to Reiss Nelson. In terms of squad build, we've obviously, we're in talks with lots of players. We've announced 3 of them. We might announce a further 3, maybe in time just before we go. But I wanted to focus on Noni Madueke just briefly, James. We've done a deep dive sort of into Noni Madueke on this channel over the last few weeks for anybody tuning in and wondering what he might bring. But your timeline attracted me because you wrote an article recently, and I've just slapped up a little screenshot of that. And you sort of dubbed it as why selling Noni Madueke to Arsenal would be a huge mistake for the Blues. You rate him. You see a lot of promise in him. Talk to me.
I rate him incredibly highly. I think this is a really smart bit of business by Arsenal. As I've said elsewhere, I wonder if you could have driven a better bargain on the price. Chelsea, but I mean, if you sort of look at the players that Chelsea have got as benchmarks for him, I think he's actually been a better player than Anthony Elanga last season. Even someone like Morgan Gibbs-White as well, and João Pedro, who they signed, Jamie Gittins. I certainly don't understand why you would be swapping out Noni Madueke for Jamie Gittins, beyond sort of balancing your squad, giving yourself more of a natural left wing option. What I would say for attacking players is one of the most important and hardest to do skills in this game is getting shots, getting good shots. Noni Madueke averaged the most shots last season of any right winger in the Premier League, 3.5 shots per 90. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but about 0.4 expected goals, nearly 10 non-penalty expected goals for the whole of the season. So he's a bit down on finishing, but I don't really think that's anything unique to Madueke. Great ball carrier as well. I don't think he's perfect by any stretch of the imagination. I think the sort of passing and creation from there could be improved, but I think he is also very young. I really, really like this pickup. I think you will see someone here who can both cover for Bukayo Saka and potentially make real inroads into that left wing position. And it's great to have a left footer on that flank and a right footer. Arsenal I think have identified someone that could really go places in an Arsenal shirt. So I really think that this will be one where a lot of people will be coming into my mentions in a year's time to apologise, which I believe is what they always do when they get it wrong, isn't it?
I love that. I love the positivity. I love the confidence as well. I mean, the pass map on the right.
You haven't asked me about Gyökeres yet.
Yeah. The pass map courtesy of Opta analyst on the right hand side shows that he was playing a little bit, not so much, but on the left hand side. I've sort of flirted with the idea. I did a show 2 or 3 days ago with a friend off another podcast, and I sort of put to him, could this be the Rafinha evolution? Could this be, Noni Madueke, who's predominantly a right-sided, left-footed wide player, but could Arteta maybe transfer him to the left? Are you expecting maybe that?
I think that will be part of his diet of minutes for sure. I mean, bear in mind, Arteta wanted Rafinha as well, and that was the vision he had. Was what Barcelona ended up using. I think he's someone that could well play right across the front line as well. Yeah, if people want to know, like, if people have that question, can he be any good on the left flank? Go and find Chelsea's game against Liverpool in May. I know Trent Alexander-Arnold is not the best defensive fullback, but he tore Liverpool to pieces off the left flank. I think he's an outstanding young footballer.
Oh, I love the confidence in that, James. One thing that I do want to sort of ask you, just away from the player, in your sort of screenshots of the tweets there, you say that a lot of the fan skepticism around Arsenal's interest in Madueke seems to be informed by nothing more than the previous poor signings from Chelsea. We do have that PTSD. Let's not sort of make people vomit and rip off that plaster again tonight. However, you did sort of go on to say why Arsenal have so quickly offered up the money, given Chelsea are actually struggling, aren't they? Not financially, but to kind of register players for the Champions League or something. I don't know what's the situation there. Why couldn't we have sort of played this out a little bit more?
I don't understand that. My understanding is Madueke and Arsenal agreed personal terms really quickly. He was really excited by the move. And look, one thing I would note is a lot of Arsenal players seem to sign after their holidays are done and dusted, and they've done all that. And rightly so. I don't think a club should be, you should be signing someone before they go on holiday. So that side of it, I do find a little bit weird. I find with Chelsea's finances, I mean, bear in mind they've just taken home about $140 million. So that's eased things a little bit. There will be pressure like from UEFA. We don't know how their squad cost rules will work there. So I do wonder if there was a deal that could have been made if Arsenal had held out a little bit longer. But, if you think he's the one thing Arsenal think they've got him at a really good price. Like Arsenal don't feel like they've been ripped off by any stretch of the imagination. I think that they're very pleased at the deal they've done.
Wow. Well, there we are. One last question. This is a super chat from Leandros. Thank you so much for your very generous super chat. He says, or she says, do you feel Madueke will have enough minutes to improve? I can't see how he's going to get enough time ahead of Saka or Martinelli to reach his potential.
This is the question that hangs over it for me. He won't start on the right wing in the biggest games unless something incredible happens. Left wing, though, I think that could be. You could, like you say, you could see more minutes. There could be an opportunity there to tailor the attack for the fullback that they're facing. I do think he'll see enough. There's a lot of football to be juggled as well. But the worry is that, he won't play, he might play 1,200 Premier League minutes. And at that level, it is a struggle to develop. And that's when I end up looking quite foolish 2 years from now. But I'm confident.
Well, let's wait and see. By the way, Kevin Rooney says, love the content and a big fan of Benj. Yes. There we go. Big fan of James Benj. Got, again, a lot of love in the chat. Let's see what Noni Madueke can bring. Let's move on to the build this summer. So, look, Arsenal are very much open for business. First up, thoughts on Big Bertie? He's moving quick.
I really like that Arsenal, when they go, they kind of go with a bit of we've not seen anything like the Ben White, which to an extent was, Arsenal were really pressuring Brighton to sell a player they didn't want to. But by and large, Arsenal have sort of done business quickly when they've identified a target. Kepa's like a prime example of this. It goes from genuinely within 24 hours, it went from sort of people reporting Arsenal looking at him to everything being agreed. That is movement and authority. Same with Norgard as well. And I like that. I like as well that on the striker business, they took their time to assess the market. Like, you can speculate what that was. Was that waiting to see what might happen with an Isak? Was that, also trying to force one of the two clubs to the table? But, the way they took their time and then got a really good deal. When they were ready to go for Gyökeres, I know it all needs ironing out, and it's a bit annoying when you're on the sort of 1 yard line. But like, they've moved. They've got it to a stage now where they know it's going to happen, and it will be done. He's going to be out in Asia, maybe not like on the same day, maybe not on the plane, but that's the aim, and really that's all that matters. It's nice to have them in La Manga, like have the new signings in La Manga if you can. It's nice to even have them a little bit before, but they've moved quickly, effectively, and people you talk to just haven't really heard any rumblings. You normally hear someone complaining about any club you ask questions about, but it feels like Arsenal are just doing business effectively. They're fairly easy to work with, and when they want a player, they just go and get it done.
It's a refreshing change, James. I'm not going to lie. I can't remember.
I think people are being really harsh about Edu.
Oh, really?
Don't you?
Well, I don't want to lay into an Arsenal great, a former invincible, but what I would say, it feels like this was the boom or bust window for Arsenal. We've been runners up 3 times in 3 years. There is immense pressure on Arteta. There's pressure on the boys. There are key contracts up for renewal. Saliba and Saka, two prime sort of candidates for that. And I just feel like with Bertie's, let's call him Bertie, with Big Bertie's arrival, it feels like they had to press the button. And we've moved fast, and it feels like, without being critical of Edu, that we've got a very proactive, almost aggressive and competent sporting director, someone who's been there, done it, worked across all the leagues, has the connections, likes to get things done. What I found really enjoyable, but also very difficult as a content creator, if I can call myself that, is you just don't know what Arsenal are doing. Like, every day we're talking to one player, one camp. In a way, it's kind of weirdly, intriguingly fun. On the other hand, it's immensely frustrating because it's like, can we just sign a player already? But when you look at the players that have come in, so look, Kepa, Arteta has bought more goalkeepers than any other position. And finally, that is now going to put that to rest. He's a solid goalkeeper, played a good season at Bournemouth. He's not going to displace David Raya unless something crazy happens, but you can't complain. 5 million quid, Premier League proven, won everything there is to win in the game. And I'm talking the biggest trophies because he's played for some big clubs. Zubimendi, you would think, will come in.
Not a Berta deal.
Yes, of course. And to be fair, that was started, feels like it started 2-3 years ago. Zubimendi, Spanish international, top caliber, someone who's maybe going to take a bit of time to settle into the pace and intensity of the league, but no doubting his football quality will be a massive upgrade on Jorginho, Partey, who, of course, was released by the club. Christian Norgard, you're talking a leader, a Premier League proven, established player, someone who's ever present, ever reliable. Thomas Frank, who sadly is at that lot, but he talks about how intelligent he is, both tactically and how good he is on the ball. So I expect, him to be almost the floor of the midfield, James. So that's a good thing for us. Madueke, the jury is out. You know, the fans are, I mean, maybe not in your case, but the fans are really split on him.
I'm voting innocent.
Gyökeres, obviously, you know, it was either he or Shesko. What are your thoughts on Victor, by the way?
I find it really hard to project a player that, aside from those brilliant Champions League games, are staying in my mind. But I don't know what you can tell about a player that scores 7 goals against Estoril, which is the equivalent of 7 goals against Derby County. I worry about it. But I would just say on Edu briefly, because it's a bit of a bone in my bonnet. We're in the same group chat, so I see this all the time. It's a bit of a bone be in my bonnet. This, like, remember where Arsenal were when Edu came in, and they got worse under his watch. And Edu had to learn some lessons about who he worked with. But the culture changed, and the reason that Andrea Berta has been able to come in and work like this is because Edu raised Arsenal to the ground and then built really strong foundations, along with Mikel Arteta. Absolutely. You know, Mikel Arteta is the architect. It doesn't happen without Mikel Arteta. But I don't think it happens without Edu either. So anyway, that's my in defense of Edu spiel.
No, listen, I think you're right. There is always a, you have to appreciate the people that have taken us on whatever journey that we're on, and they were part of the fabric at that point. We were in trouble as a club when Mikel Arteta took over. We were in turmoil, and so they both worked very hard to try and reshape a lot of things, a lot of factors, not just the men's team. But you know, sometimes you just got to move on. Different environment, different challenge. And for us now, we need someone who's got that proven track record, that sort of credibility in the market, and it feels like Bertie's the guy. Just to finish off the signing, so Victor Gyökeres, obviously, I think the medical is penned for Friday. There might be a formal announcement at some point. Christian Mosquera, who has also agreed terms with Arsenal, I think has agreed a new long-term contract to play for us, which is another exciting sort of signing from a young perspective. The one that everyone's talking about is Eberechi Eze. Thoughts on this, James? Have you got any news? Have you got anything that you can
There's no news. Tonight? There is no news. Like, it has all been discussed between player and club, or players' representatives and club, I should say. But nothing's happening with Palace. And, you know, right now Palace are not really, they have other fish that they are frying. I know people can do 2 things at once, but I think we also know it's a little bit contingent on what business, if any, gets done in terms of making space in the squad, making space on the transfer budget, because you could raise a lot of money with the right deals. You could cross-fund Eze by selling, you know, a Trossard and a Nelson and, you know, a couple of other players at that level. If you're lucky, you get some good money for Zinchenko and Vieira. Yeah, I think as a cherry on top, I can't think of much better and much more exciting. You know, I think Arsenal have sort of done this business in the right order, and Eze is the sort of, he's the jewel in the crown. Already has many jewels, many embellishments, and Eberechi Eze is another one, and he's brilliant and iridescent. And, you know, I think Arsenal could still have a hugely successful season without Eberechi Eze. I think if the window closed now, I think, and Arsenal got all their players in, I think it would be a really successful window. But Eze is like, that's where it could get to all-timer levels, and where you could really say, you know, we could fill 2 11s that can compete for the biggest prizes. So yeah, I don't think it's one that we're going to see done in the next few weeks. I hope not, because I'm going on holiday next week. I think it feels like one that will float, but that's natural. Every club has a player like that, and at least for Arsenal, like, they could cope without him if they had to.
Well, this is the question that I want to pose to you, because we've talked about the 6, let's say, that are pictured on that top right that are assumed on their way. So 3 have already been announced: Madueke, hopefully soon; Gyökeres, hopefully soon thereafter; and Christian Mosquera, who, you know, depending on who you follow on socials, that's also a done deal. My question to you is going to be, how many of these are first teamers? You know, Victor Gyökeres. Yeah, look ahead to Manchester United. This is the creative work of some of our fans on the socials. Look at that, the team news on the left-hand side there, just to get the juices flowing for a few people watching. You look at that team and you think, right, David Raya, Timber, Saliba, Gabriel, Lewis Skelly. Now, Zubimendi is a starter, Reiss Nelson, Saka. If we were to get Eze and Gyökeres, The question is this enough, James? Is this enough to, especially when you think about the noise coming out of Newcastle, Liverpool keeping their ears peeled for eyes peeled, ears peeled. What's the phrase for Isak?
Everything's peeled.
And they've already done a lot of good transfer activity. Manchester City flew out the blocks with their transfer activity before the Club World Cup, and now Chelsea, with this new sort of money and tournament success that they've had over pre-season and this confidence that they might have going into the new season under Maresca.
Help if they spent it on good players.
True, touche. But is it enough, James? Are we going to go from second to first with that window that we've just discussed?
I think it's the best you can do. You can quibble over the individual players, and whether let's say it might not be Eze, it might be Rodrigo. I think probably Eze feels a bit more likely, but you know what I mean. Like that one extra player, if you go and get him, I mean, even right now, you have a squad where you've got 2 players that Mikel Arteta trusts to start, like at least 2 players in every position, with all the additions. That's all you can really do. You can chase blind alleys on Alexander Isak, and maybe sometimes that would pay off. And if Liverpool go and get Alexander Isak and he stays fit all season, sometimes you're just unlucky that you're relying on something going wrong for them a little bit. But I would sort of say that Arsenal, kind of even without Eze, but certainly if they had that final attacker, they really have to just maximize their capabilities. It's not always enough, and people will hammer them if they finish second again. But I don't know. I would be looking back at that and going, what else could they have done? Like, how else could they have swung at this? How else could they have built this squad better? Because most of the other options, what's the path that Arsenal haven't taken beyond, fan fiction of signing Alexander Isak that one summer or that one January when he was at Selfridges in London and all that?
Do you remember the number plate? The Isak number plate on the car?
I could dig out what that number plate is and probably shouldn't broadcast it. But believe me, I suddenly found myself a sort of expert in finding out how who owns a number plate and all that. Yeah, I think as is, because I don't think Liverpool will get Isak this summer, and I bet they'll probably end up going for Ekitike. I would make Liverpool ever so slight favourites, but it wouldn't feel impossible for me that all it would take is Mo Salah not being last season's Mo Salah, and that could all change. And sometimes you have to sort of accept that, you can't expect your team to go and get themselves a front three of Saka, Mbappe, and Haaland. It's Arsenal don't play this game on easy mode. Arsenal play it with Liverpool, and they play it with two petro state clubs, and they play it with, if you want it to be easy, go and support Bayern Munich. That's what I would say.
In a less competitive league, I think. Look, for me, there's a lot of people in the chat talking about Mikel Arteta needing to rotate better. And Mike has just said, look, man, that bench is very good. And actually, this is a really salient point, James. We ran out of legs towards the back end of the season. Yeah. We had a couple of goalkeepers, 3 left backs, a couple of academy players, and Raheem Sterling as our bench for so many games, and Mikel Merino playing up top. You look at this bench, if these signings are all to happen, and we could be going to Old Trafford with Kepa, Mosquera, White, Calafiori, Norgard, Madueke, Nwaneri, Martinelli, and Havertz on the bench. I mean, that is a massive upgrade. And to your point, there were things that we just had to do in this squad. Like, everybody wants the marquee signing. Everybody wants that out-and-out winger or that out-and-out centre forward who's going to get the goals. But, we needed to get that backup goalkeeper. We needed to get another young defender. We needed to get a midfielder to kind of just bolster up the numbers in midfield, because we lost both Jorginho and Partey. And also, when you think about Norgard, he might give Zubimendi a bit of breathing time, to settle in. Like, Norgard could just, he's capable of starting at Old Trafford next to Declan Rice and Odegaard, because he's probably been there and won this season.
And most importantly, the one player that you kind of would be like, of the new signings that kind of has to start at Old Trafford, which is Zubimendi, to my mind. You've given him the most time possible. He was there on day one of preseason. That they've done it all just about right. People hate this. People hate because I think you can always, people as a fan, you dream of doing more, but you live in the real world, guys. you can quibble about sort of small specific decisions, but the big picture of this is like, what do you really think? Like, how much better do you think Arsenal could be? How much better run do you think they could be? I don't know what more could be done.
Yeah, I think that's fair. There's a lot of people in the chat sort of asking, well, how ambitious should Arsenal have been this summer? And I think it's not just about those one or two marquee signings. It's about squad building and, Arsenal under a lot of pressure. I put a poll out in the live video. Is this window of 6 plus Eze enough to win us the league? 73% of you saying yes, it is. There's the optimism, and I'd love that. By the way, there are just shy of 800 of you watching live right now. Please do drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new and if you're enjoying the content. But I think we're going to end it there, James, because Love Island has just kicked off, so you can watch it on demand forward through the breaks. And tomorrow, ladies and gents, boys and girls, I'll be joined by Phil Costa of the Arsenal Vision podcast. We'll talk about how we'll make it fun, actually, quite interactive. So just bear with me. We'll come back tomorrow. James, any closing words? Are you backing us for the league next year? Do you think it could be our season?
No.
Great. On that,
did you see Liverpool sign Florian Wirtz? That's the thing Arsenal should have done.
Oh dear! Just like that, you burst my bubble, and now I'm
my pleasure.
Smiling. Listen, thank you, James. It's been a real pleasure. Anybody who wants to follow James, he's available at James Benge at CBS Sport. Ladies and gents, thanks for watching. Look after yourselves. Sleep well. Back tomorrow with Phil Costa. Take care. Bye for now.